afternoon. If everybody can get seated, get started. Lots to cover today. I'm Michelle Barefoot. I'm the Executive Director of the Benzie Area Chamber of Commerce. And welcome to the Benzie Area Chamber of Commerce Annual Summit. We are grateful to our government officials and community organizations that have come together today to present the state of Benzie. The Benzie Chamber promotes programming like this under our Advocacy and Awareness Council to provide information to our members and to the community. I would like to give some recognition to our host, Grow Benzie, our sponsor, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and a special thank you to Harbor Lights Resorts, our refreshments sponsor.
I came a little late, so they're up here.
So help yourself on that. If you do take any pictures today, we do ask that you tag us at #MakeItBenzie. And we are going to get started. We have a great presentation for you today. I would now like to have our Benzie County Administrator, Katie Zeits, come up and share the state of Benzie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Zeits, and I want to thank you for inviting me here to speak with you today. I'm the Benzie County Administrator. I've been in the position since late August of last year, and it's been a whirlwind of excitement. I've met a lot of people, and it's been a great time. Here in Benzie County, we're focusing on a lot of things as we move forward and move into the future. I have a nice list I'm going to go through. So right now, we're focusing on a lot of things because, as everyone has heard in the community, we have a lot of ARPA funding coming into Benzie County and all across our state. And so in Benzie County, we're working through that whole process as to how are we going to invest that money into Benzie County that's going to benefit all of us to the best. Right now, we're working through an internal process similar to a lot of counties across the state. We're working with our staff to kind of identify some major things that maybe we want to invest in. And our next step is to work with those in the community. So I will be reaching out to townships and villages here in the near future to get their buy-in in the city of Frankfort, to get their buy-in as to how we should spend this money to be most effective for Benzie County. It's a great process that I'm going through. The staff has given a lot of feedback as to how they think we should spend that money to benefit our residents here in the community. So I'm excited to continue to roll that out. Some other things that we're working through and we're going to touch on here today is broadband. So recently we conducted a broadband feasibility study here in Benzie County, and Benzie County had a tremendous response. You all should be very, very proud of the response we had. Merit has told us that we broke their records, which is really great. On April 26th at 1:30 in the afternoon, we will have a presentation from the folks of Merit to talk about that feasibility study that we just went through. I invite everyone in this room, as well as the community, to attend that meeting or view it virtually on Zoom. We will be posting those links here very, very soon. But I would love for all of you to come to that meeting and hear just, where we're at with broadband in Benzie County. And then we'll talk about potentially next steps as to implementing broadband across Benzie County. Some other things that we're working on just internally is we're working on improvements to technology and transparency. We're working to update our website and implement some other efficiencies in Benzie County so that we're using those resources to the best of our ability. Some other things that we're working on is we're just simply working on updating a lot of things in the internal organization, updating policies, looking at different procedures and job descriptions to make sure everything that we have in place is to the best that we can have it. One of the final things that we're working on is millages. So as you know, here in Benzie County, we have quite the array of millages that we vote on every few years. And this year is going to be a big one. We're working through animal control, the jail, EMS, TND, which is drug enforcement, as well as the school resource officer position. So we're going to be rolling out a lot of educational information on those millages as to what they mean for Benzie County. Because without those millages, we can't operate a lot of the services that we want to give to that community. Does anyone have any questions?
You said there's some money coming into Benzie County. Can you give us the
Sure. So the American Rescue Plan Act that was put into place by President Joe Biden gives money to counties and other local units across the country. Here in Benzie County, we're going to receive roughly $3.4 million. That's just to the county government. The other townships, cities, and villages will receive some funds as well, bringing in over $6 million into Benzie County as a total. So as we work through this process is how we're going to spend it. We'll talk among the other jurisdictions within the county because there is opportunity to partner and maybe get more money for that buck. So implement bigger items as we go through that process. The mayor meeting will be April 26th at 1:30 p.m. at the Governmental Center. We will post the Zoom link the week before that. So if you want to attend via Zoom, if you aren't able to come to the meeting, you're welcome to do that as well. Any other questions? Things are great here in Benzie County, but they can be greater. So we're going to continue to work with our partners in this community to really grow Benzie in the way we want it to be.
Thank you, team. That was some very exciting news. So we'll be looking forward to the villages and all kinds of good stuff coming to Benzie. Our next speaker is Blake Brooks. He is the president of our Benzie County Economic Development Authority and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Thank you, Blake.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I am Blake Brooks. I am the current chair of the Benzie County Economic Development Corporation and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Both institutions have been around for some time, although approximately 3 years ago, they were merged together on one body. So they kind of wear two hats at this time. Just for some housekeeping, the EDC board, EDC BRA board is comprised of Daniel Barczewski, myself as the chair, Betsy Evans is the vice chair, Thor Goff, Eric Gustin, Rhonda Nugent, and I believe Rhonda's here, Rhonda, and Art Janot. Rhonda and Art are liaisons with the Benzie County Board of Commissioners. I had a lot here, and candidly, I don't think some of the details are probably not that interesting. So maybe what I'll try to do is short circuit the process a little bit and kind of keep it at a high level. If there's some questions, I will do my best to answer those. As economic development would imply, we're primarily focused on opportunities for economic development in Benzie County. And that's a broad range. You know, everybody automatically thinks about how are we enticing new businesses to relocate to the county, and while that's certainly a part of it, we also do our best to reach out to our existing businesses. You know, it's nothing better than eating in your own kitchen. We want to make sure that our existing employers are being taken care of. If there are needs that need to be met, we want to make sure we're taking care of them and how can they be met. We like to avoid surprises when the old Mitchell Corporation pull out of town and nobody really knew about it until the 11th hour. So we are trying to work and develop programs to address that going forward. So to that end, we currently have two major initiatives going on. One is kind of a broad-based job retention economic development program. It is a joint program we're rolling out with the Benzie County Chamber of Commerce. We've actually rolled out a program description, subcommittee at the EDC of myself, Betsy Evans, Vicki Carpenter, who's here today, Art Janot and Josh Mills. Rolled out this description, vetted it through the EDC board. Then we've taken it to the chamber board and they've signed off on that. And then in turn, they've developed a job description to have somebody manage this program. So really at a very high level, what we're trying to accomplish here, keep it simple, is to try to hire somebody on a part-time basis who really, that's their job, is economic development in Benzie County. You heard Katie mention the ARPA money. We get some things finalized here and get some of the rough edges smoothed out. We hope to approach, I shouldn't say hope, we do plan on approaching the county commissioners and seeking some funding for a part-time position for 3 years to fund this position. You know, we think having somebody that gets up in the day and thinks about economic development in Benzie County, how they can help existing businesses grow, how we can entice Barrett businesses to relocate to Benzie County, what we have to offer. Having somebody in that position and thinking about that is the best way to go versus You know, candidly, a board of volunteers that wear multiple hats, and most of us have other businesses to run or manage. So ideally, this will be a win-win for the county, for the government agencies, for the people that live here in Benson County. In addition to that, we kind of did spearhead the first broadband initiative here in Benson County. We had a broadband subcommittee. We did reach out and hire Merit to start the survey that Katie referenced. We recognize that we need to have affordable, accessible, high-speed internet throughout Benson County. I think COVID really drove that point home. When you see area high school students parked at McDonald's or libraries trying to access the internet because they don't have access to high-speed internet at home. We also think that there's some unique opportunities. I think we've all lived here, those that live here in Benson County certainly appreciate the beauty of the county, what it has to offer in terms of outdoor activities, nature. So we think we're uniquely positioned that we can entice other maybe entrepreneurial, high tech, that creative coast. I don't want to steal that phrase, that's somebody else's phrase. But we've got a unique footprint here that we can entice business to relocate and maybe work from home or manage from the storefront. But if they're in more of a rural setting, they've got to have access to high-speed internet. That's just the reality of life. So we've started that process with that survey. Katie mentioned it is going to be addressed at the county commissioners meeting on April 26th. So I hope you all can make that. I think that'll be very informative. Lastly, we do have the BRA component, and I'm happy to say that we actually have a BRA plan that we are going to be reviewing at a special meeting, which I don't think it's been set yet. Is that right? So we're still working on that, but that is coming. That is for the a site in honor. I was formerly known as Buds. I think many of the local people would recognize that. So we do have something in the works on that front. It'll be our first time through, and they are going to be looking to take advantage of TIF funding to make that work, which is an interesting concept in itself. So I think that'll be a little bit of a learning curve for everybody. But the long-term goal is that that site will be cleaned up in a good way, make it healthy again, and get a nice business located on there, and keep increasing the tax base for honor in the Homestead Township. There is another one potentially in the works. I really, at this point, hesitate to say too much. There hasn't been a formal purchase agreement signed, as I understand, so I don't want to get out over my skis and start talking about that too much. But we do hopefully have another one coming down the pipe very soon as well. The BRA, we did enlist the services of a Susan Wensley. She's a consultant. She resides in Beulah, which is very nice. She works for Fishback Consulting Group in Traverse City. And she has a great deal of knowledge on the BRA program and things of that nature, because frankly, we're all a little bit new to that. So that's a wonderful skill set that she brings to the table. I think with that, I've kind of covered the high points, probably the low points. Is there an answer to questions? You guys have really been a ton of audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. There's a running theme with both our county administration as well as our Economic Development Corporation, and that's broadband. In our rural community, broadband is such a desperate need, not only for our residents to have access to fast and affordable internet, but also for our education system, for our healthcare system. It's just it's becoming more of a utility and less of a luxury. Our U.S. representative, Jack Bergman, is always talking about the Electrification Act of 1936 and creating a broadband system or an infrastructure that is a basic utility for everyone is the ultimate goal. So here to talk about broadband, I'm going to invite Randy Reynolds. She's our moderator from Northwest Ed. And our panelists today, we have Katie Jensen from Merit Networks. We have Marilyn Passmore from Charter Spectrum. We have Chris Varenhorst's team from Eclipse Communications. And we have Tim from Cherry Capital Communications. That's a mouthful. And welcome you to join Randy and everybody here at the panel, and let's have a great discussion. top, Brandy. Here's karaoke after.
I'll make sure I'm on for that. Just carry you all. Well, thank you for joining us today. Again, my name is Brandy Reynolds. I work for Northwest Education Services and I'm the Director of Technology there. We provide technology services to 8 of our local school districts, Benzie County being one of them. So Michelle called and asked if I would facilitate this, and we have some great people today. So I'll let you go down and introduce yourselves as well. And thanks for joining.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Varenhorst from Eclipse Communications.
Good afternoon, I'm Katie Jensen with Merit Network.
Hi, Marilyn Passmore with Charter Spectrum. I'm the Michigan State Director for Government Affairs, and I also lead our rural digital broadband expansion project for Michigan and Indiana.
Tim Malone, CEO for Cherry Capital Communications. Welcome to be.
We're doing this a lot. Yes, we are. Try and go through. Well, the first question that we wanted to ask the panel is kind of how will the survey information that's been gathered, and I don't want to steal too much thunder from the county's presentation on the 26th, but how are your organizations utilizing that? And then Mara, what have you seen come from that, from your aspect as well?
This is a great question. It's very much been highlighted in the last half year or so, and I think we can all agree that it can be silly at times where we have to continually demonstrate to the state government or the federal government that we do need rural broadband funding and assistance in building out infrastructure. But there's a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of entities out there that are asking for funding all across the United States. And so statistically viable data is absolutely important to be able to meet that criteria in a grant application or financing opportunity. So the work that's being done by Merit to produce that statistically viable data will very much be used pretty much in every grant application, subsidy, or financing opportunity that's presented to us. In all the grant applications that we filled out up to this point and in going forward, this data will be very important for meeting that criteria in each one of those initial situations going forward.
Go first. Hi, everyone. So raise your hand if you've heard of Merit. Wow, okay, I'm pleasantly surprised. People are vendors, business people. If you don't mind, can I give a little history of Merit, just so that people know who we are and why we've been tapped? It's definitely a passion of ours. So Merit Network is headquartered out of Ann Arbor. In 1966, there was a triad of 3 universities: University of Michigan, Michigan State, and Wayne State University. So they were all sharing research, probably on the orange screen computers or maybe green bar paper back in the day in 66. Nevertheless, the 3 universities applied for National Science Foundation grant and received it. Thus was formed Merit, Michigan Educational Research Information Triad. So we've been in business since 66. Continue to apply and get grant funding from the government. Again, we are a research and education network. You'll hear the term REN from time to time, maybe. But we actually have on staff still or retired coders that you and I would know created the internet. So we were a big player, big start. Sorry, Al Gore. Sorry, Al Gore. But you get, so just a little history of Merit. We work with nonprofits only. So we cannot connect residences directly. We cannot connect commercial buildings directly. We stay in our lane, we always have. So that includes K-12, we serve all the K-12, the higher ed, community colleges, healthcare, government, including Benzie County, and so on. So when you think of Merit, think of us as working with nonprofits. The other kind of feather in our cap is that we have put in over the years over 4,000 miles of fiber internet throughout the whole state, in the Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula as well. We have representatives, including myself, throughout the state. I actually live in Harbor Springs, so I'm familiar with the North. I also came from, prior to Merit, I was with Northern Lakes Economic Alliance, which was an EDC. So like, I have some things in common. So I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about getting communities connected. One more thing. So we initially have rolled out our Moonshot program. That's where the data collection comes in. Moonshot is initially was to close the homework gap. And we didn't know this 2.5 years ago, that this would become such a thing. And then the pandemic hit and our phone was ringing off the hook. So this has been in play with Merit. The idea of Moonshot is to take our fiber internet and parlay off of it using last mile providers to connect residences and other businesses. So that's kind of the history of Merit.
Thank you. So how will Charter use the survey results? Is that the question? I think surveys can be very helpful in terms of like a snapshot in time of kind of where things are. And something that was interesting to me as a state director meeting with Katie was that a few months ago, the results were coming from a lot of the areas where Charter is actively building. So that's exciting. So we received funding through the FCC to build out broadband into even further rural areas than we serve now. So an example would be the FCC program allocated, I believe it was $9.8 billion, this is pre-pandemic, to a host of companies, and Charter was one of the companies that won funding. In Michigan, we received 26 million, we're investing 100 as an example. In Benzie County, we received just over 1.9 million. Our investment's gonna be close to 6 million. So we've already started building. We've lit up our network and we've got customers coming online. And this is a rolling build that's going to continue through next year. But what's exciting, and going back to the survey question, is that when I saw some of where the responses were coming from, I could see the areas like Platte Township and other areas that are new for us as a company, that a lot of those responses were coming from those unserved areas. And that was exactly the purpose of this FCC funding, was it was to go to unserved addresses in a census block. And if you think about a census block, to me, they look like a jigsaw puzzle, right? And if we're looking at a jigsaw puzzle from above, as our company is building this fiber-rich network, it's all going to be fiber. It's 1,000 by 500 is our speed, and we're building 3,000 additional miles of fiber. Just in Michigan, we have 36,000 miles today. We're going past far more homes than what we were awarded. So in Benzie County, to kind of take it back to the survey data, we were given funding to build over 1,300 homes. We're building close to 2,000 addresses. That's homes and businesses. So we're going to have that network expansion ongoing. And I think the survey will be helpful for the county, but also to help the county understand where to steer information on. Did you know this new network is there, right? We can advertise, we will be advertising, but there's other providers here, one sitting next to me, that are going to be building too. So I think it'll help you understand not only where the gaps are, but where the providers are filling the gaps. I hope that answers the question.
Good stuff. To be fair, we haven't seen the results of the survey. Looking forward to April, where we can see them. But as we went through the survey, we found that there were some unique questions that were asked that focus on the consumer's experience. What has changed when it comes to how we respond with surveys is that the criteria is changing rapidly as to how to get the funds. So when we received RDOF, that was for areas in Benzie County. We won in 8 counties, Benzie being one of them. And it was whether or not you had 25 by 5 service, a very low number. Today's funding in the new program has been raised to a goal of 100 by 100. And that's within 8-9 month period. So the criteria, unfortunately, the downside to that is builders then can bypass those who truly don't have internet. And so one of our focuses with the survey and other results is to make sure that we have a priority to those homes that truly do not have internet. Whether as we build out and weighing those who have some internet to better. So we're in the same category as Spectrum in the sense that we are doing gig level services. We decided to make a small change in our technical documentation with the FCC, and we went to the level of 10 gig. So our transport to every home is going to be a 10 gig by 10 gig connection, shared amongst the 64 homes, but a significant pipe that will allow growth over the next 20, 30, 40 years. We don't, that wasn't relatively available when we did the RDOF application. By the time we won, we chose to, since it's greenfield, to go out with the best possible internet we can deliver. And so we're hoping that the survey will help us identify. We also have increased, we won, I think, 118 homes in Benzie, a very small number. As we did the design work and utilizing the merit network so we can tap into our data centers faster, we established 4 data centers, or identified 4 areas for data centers in Benzie, and we're going to end up passing a little over 2,000 homes. So great impact from that one federal program, and most of the providers we've talked to are doing similar activities.
Thank you. And so for those that aren't familiar, the RDOF that they're speaking of, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund that you apply to through the FCC. And so all of these vendors were awarded some of those funds for some of the work that they're doing, which is why they're here. So the second question is big plans. Love hearing it. Great for Benzie, great for all the kids that I know we serve in Benzie, coming from the educational institution side. But what are the plans for the next 6 months? It's big season, the ground's opening up. So what are your plans for the next 6 months in working to develop this?
At least at this point in time, with our strategic development of Eclipse Communications, this particular iteration of RDOF was something that didn't really fit where we're at primarily right now, but future iterations of it most certainly so. In terms of other funding, and if I could run with Tim's point, that the moving target aspect of the criteria out there. So we've all heard news in the last 6 months or so about larger amounts of funding that are being allocated to broadband in rural, unserved, and underserved areas. And so a lot of it remains to be seen as to what the criteria and what the stipulations are going to be. These applications and certain funding sources can be very complex to apply for. To use one as an example would be a funding source from the USDA. We contacted the USDA about a month and a half ago. They did not have any directive yet as to what their own stipulations were going to be for access to that funding. So the moving target aspect of this is very much going to be a recurring theme. We've worked with Venture North and utilization of the CDBG grant funding for our heavy equipment acquisition. We'll continue to do so. It's been a fantastic relationship. And we look forward to working under the auspices of the MOU-based partnership between Eclipse Communications and Benson County and what we can do ourselves locally and trying to decrease as much reliance on state and federal entities when possible and when allowed to do so.
Thank you. My answer to this part is a little bit shorter, but I'll just give you some of the facts of the data collection. I think that's what we're a little bit interested in. And again, the bigger presentation is on the 26th with the county. So the reason we're doing the data collection at the highest level is obviously to get grant funding, but also to review the FCC forms. The FCC will stamp the census block. If one house is served with internet, they stamp the census block served. And that's just simply not accurate. I can tell you that the county response, I think Michelle alluded to it, is the county response to the data collection is over 20%, which is huge, of houses surveyed. The lowest response is 15%, which is also impressive. That means the survey is going to be very accurate. The high participation means your community is interested in broadband. People want internet and they want broadband complete. The FCC, just for a little more clarification, because we up here know what we have, what we don't, and who's what. So the FCC says that 0.03 of a county does not have broadband service, 0.03%. Right? Good reaction. Preliminary results of this survey show that around 56.7% is not served. They do not have internet service, right? It's a percentage point overestimation, but let's just call it 50% of the county, right? Or upwards of. So FCC also suggests that 93% of the households in Benzie County have at least 25 meg, 25.3. But preliminary results found that 27% of the households experience broadband speed of lower. The FCC data currently suggests that 63.5% of the county has broadband speeds of 100/20. So it's 100 megabit. Preliminary speed test results show that only 1.9% of the households only have high-speed internet. So these are the facts we're going to refute, that collecting all that data. And thank you for your responses as a community. That will only help, again, refute the data and get the grant funding that we need. I'm going to scoot to the second question. The question Brandy just asked. Merit's going to continue, obviously, to be a part of this process, not only with the data collection, but we've also applied for grants to continue our program across the state. And we are partnering, really proud to partner with a lot of the utility companies, the co-ops, Presque Electric and Gas in the Northeast, Traverse City and Layton Power just north of us. Those are our members. And they are both starting a fiber to the home project. So again, they'll use that backhaul fiber that we laid throughout the state and parlay it out to their members, their residents, our communities.
So what are we doing for the next 6 months? We are building. I was talking to Bob Rochelle at the start of the meeting, and he said, man, you guys are going all winter. And I said, yeah, they don't really stop. So I think our build will escalate now that the weather's hopefully starting to turn and we don't have any more winter storms. We are, on track to build over 200 miles of network in the county with the RDOF program. And as I mentioned prior to this, we are building far more than what we were awarded as a company. And so that's only going to continue. I expect we'll be through our Benzie build, and how's that for a buzzword, sometime next year. And we're certainly open to talking to the county about partnering to go further. We could use our money to add on to what we're already doing. So I'll just mention before I forget, because it's an important point, 2 things. If you're interested in learning, does my house sit where Charter's building? This is a great website. You can access it anywhere to your phone, whatever. It's a Spectrum Rural Expansion. You put in your address. If you are in a current serviceable area, you'll be redirected to our Spectrum main webpage. If you're in a build area, you can add your address. You can sign up for texts or emails, whatever your preference. It does work. I've got folks that we're working with in Leelanau and Manistee that have personally contacted me and said, hey, guess what? I got the text. I'm on the list. I have one lady in Chicago who's going to move once their address is built out in Leelanau, just an example. And that's not going to surprise you because, again, people want the connectivity. So Spectrum Rural Expansion is the website. Secondly, I do want to talk about adoption. Because something, it's exciting to build and we're thrilled to be on this end of everything. But we also, and I know you'll probably get to this question, but not everybody takes the service, right? And we do have, I heard people talking about affordable. We have a low cost offer. We've had it in place for 6 years. That's Spectrum Internet Assist. And essentially what that is a 30 meg service for $17.99 a month. We don't have contracts. We don't have data caps. And there's no modem fee. So for example, if you live in a Spectrum area today in Benzie County, and for whatever reason, you're not yet a customer, and if you have a child on, say, free reduced lunch, or you have someone in your household that's a veteran or is a low-income senior, they can qualify for that service. There's information on the back table on how to sign up. And then, not to add too much jam to the bread, but the FCC came out with a program through Congress that gives anyone who qualifies, regardless of the type of service provider they have, Doesn't have to be cable, it can be fixed wireless. You can qualify for a $30 credit on your monthly data plan. And so there's information on the back table as well. So if somebody were to qualify for that and they had our low cost offer, guess what? Now they have free internet. So there's your affordability. And again, that's a program we've had in place. I helped launch it in 2016, and it's been very, very popular, and certainly even more so through the pandemic. So as we go on and we build more, we also want to talk about what does it take to get people using the internet? What does it take to promote digital literacy? Where is it going to give people comfort of being safe doing online banking? My mom would not ever do online banking because she just was not going to have it. But there are things that we can help with digital literacy and getting folks the support they need to feel comfortable using the internet. So I just want to make sure I mention that before I forget.
Yeah, over the next 6 months, from a construction standpoint, we'll be mapping out signing leases for our what we call data centers or distribution centers. The key to those distribution centers, and one of the advantages of being tapped into the Merit network, is that we are also inviting other providers, 123, ACD, PFN, as a whole. PFN is the 911 fiber network all next gen. We partner with them quite a bit. To the idea that even though we may be building the fiber to the home, there may be programs that are better suited by other providers that they can use that fiber infrastructure in order to service that particular customer in that specific location that we may not be servicing at the level that they require, because every provider has significant advantages and disadvantages in their business model and how they're trying to address servicing that customer. So the distribution centers are essential in our growth. And so over the next 6 months, we're inviting our typical providers to come to the table and look at Benzie, look at last comment, all the different comments that we're working on. To funding, there are about 9 different programs going on right now. So the other piece, as the WISPA director for Michigan, I've been appointed to the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, which is what's going to determine how state money is distributed throughout the area. So pleased to work with Eric and that group on that. But part of my role as a WISPA director is to then go out and educate other smaller entrepreneurial ISPs that add great value to the area and try to help them with a successful application for funding. Back to digital literacy, over the next 6 months, we are looking for working with a nonprofit organization to get funds in to do a campaign towards digital literacy. Once you're on a gig network, many of the inside network is not capable of keeping up with the gig. As an example, Euro has a nice Wi-Fi system. You can buy a 300 meg, you can buy a 500 meg unit, or you can buy a gig unit. If you have a 300 meg unit and you are on our gig service, you're not going to be happy with our service because your own equipment can't keep up with the backbone that's there. And that's the shift in digital literacy. Once you're on a transport like fiber, that no longer is the variable why you have poor service. It usually transitions into the consumer understanding how to take full advantage of that backbone to be yourself. So over the next 6 months, that's where our focus is going to be.
Sounds like a lot of great opportunity coming in a very quick timeframe. But now I know you all also have larger plans. So there's plans that this is where we're getting started and where kind of do we want to end up. So that's kind of my next question is then where do you see this going into, where will you be in 2 to 5 years? And it can be your greener pastures, whichever version you would like to share, but where will you be in 2 to 5 years as you continue to work through this? Because we know you won't be finished in 6 and I doubt you'll be finished in 2. So
2 to 5 year plans, I guess if I look backwards, in the last 2 to 5 years, it's been for Eclipse Communications, and it's been a phenomenal growth period where we've created 8 local positions. We've had our employees move here, spend money here, buy houses here, and when I look forward 2 to 5 years out, I see a growth pattern that's quite similar. Recent press release earlier this week regarding fiber build out has us starting initial construction projects of our own fiber to the home network just this coming Monday. And so moving that forward in that we've self-capitalized this initial build where we will certainly be looking to augment the investment into that network to amplify our ability to build it too quickly and get it out there as quickly as possible. I usually try to plan too far out because we like to maintain a degree of flexibility and agility in responding to the opportunities that are handed to us. And being that we're a local company here in Benzie County, we've had tremendous support from Benzie County government, the EDC, and various stakeholders and partners in the area. I can't predict what that's going to look like a year or two from now, but it will certainly be amazing.
Thank you. Merritt's going to continue to do what we do best and stay in our lane and work with our anchor institutions like Benzie County. Darcy Library is one of our members, and just continue to tackle the rural broadband issue. I think I threw out the word moonshot. We started our moonshot program, which is really the rural development and rural internet broadband project 3 years ago before the pandemic. And it stemmed from not only the need, we all knew that in the area, but our president and CEO, Joe Sawaski, was in Pickford, kind of touring our area and our fiber and some of our members. And he saw a van, a mother with her children in a van outside of the library in Pickford, Pickford or Cedarville, and it's just heartbreaking. The kids had to come sit in a parking lot and do their homework. Schools were kind enough to give out laptops, so the technology was there, the hardware was there, but to ride a bus from 45 minutes one way and not be able to do your homework, it just was losing productivity. We'll speak to this again on the 26th of April, but we'll talk about how it affects grades, education, careers, economic development. So it is a tremendous impact. So Michigan's going to continue to also apply for the grants that will help our communities and our anchor institutions thrive.
Next 2 to 5 years, and that was a great thought about looking back. I mean, yesterday we announced that we doubled our starting speeds from 100 megabits to 200, no cost to the customer. That's just happened overnight. So in every market we serve, our starting speed is now 200. When I started with the company, I remember when we launched 1 megabit. Nobody bought it right away because we all had dial-up, right? 385 or 256. You'd send your files at night and hope they went. So, you know, the technology, to your point, is moving at a lightning speed. The federal rules are changing. We're seeing, you know, a tremendous, almost breathtaking amount of federal funding coming in. And, you know, from an RDOF perspective, which we were given as a provider, you get 6 years to build. We're not going to take 6 years. We're already quite ahead of schedule. However, having said that, the FCC, when they give the funding, they were smart. They put clawback into the funding, right? So if they give the funding to a company, the company does not build, then they have the authority to take our taxpayer money back, as they should. I think we'll be a lot further ahead. I don't know that we'll be done before 6, could be done 5, I don't know. It is breathtaking at how quickly it's changing. The industry, we're testing 10G. We have a cable lab in Denver where all of their smartest engineers are working all the time. We're doing all kinds of amazing things like adaptive technology and voice remotes and assistance for people with disabilities. And there's just so much that's going on in the space. It's an exciting place to work in, but I don't have a magic 8 ball and be able to say what exactly we're doing in 5 years, but I will tell you, I mean, I'm on the RDOF team this is what I signed up for. This is the best part of the job, is going out and meeting with people and talking about all the cool things we're doing, but also what we've been doing and reminding people that we've been here, we've been a provider, we have an extensive network, it is scalable, we have a ton of fiber already. We launched gig service to the home in 2019. Congressman Bergman was at our ribbon cutting in Traverse City. We've had gig to the home since January of 2019 as an example. So there's a lot of good things that are happening in space. And, you know, as others have said, it's almost difficult to keep up with. So I would say 2 years, I mean, I would expect in Benzie we will be done our RDOF build, but again, we're open to doing more. And I'll just touch on some of the others, and this may be a future question, but there's a ton of other federal and state funding that's coming out. And I think those are going to give us some opportunities to go back to Merritt. Where it could be helpful is, okay, RDOF is built, say jump forward 2-3 years. Maybe we're done, these folks are done, others are finished. And now you've got a real clear picture of what wasn't included, right, in that funding round. And then that could be a potential grant opportunity, whether it's a state grant, a USDA grant, or a host of all of them to fill in the gaps. And I think that's what we're really all trying to do, so.
Yeah, the next 6 years are pretty clear for us. RDOF. That's our laser focus. We have in total a little over 16,000 houses passed, even though our RDOF win was 3,000 households. So a lot of work to be done. A lot of challenges with inventory, equipment, human resources. It's amazing how much they want done, how few resources are available to do it. But we're confident we'll get through it. As of November, based on our current projections, we'll be a year ahead of schedule on RDOF. We're hoping by year 3 to be 2 years ahead. So again, the sooner we get RDOF done, the sooner we can respond to newer opportunities that are out there. Because if you look at gig as a standard in symmetrical terms, which means it's 1 gig both ways equally, I would say probably over 90% of the United States does not have that level of service. So it is a real challenge on how to use existing resources to the maximum, not overbuilding, and how to create relationships with others so that we're cooperating in what we do. Last thing we want to do is go down the same road with 3 different providers. That's a real waste of money, time, and energy. So for the next 2 to 6 is RDOF. What happens after year 4, not sure. But all I can say is there's going to be more of the same. We do not see the funding spigot stopping. I think everybody is very much committed, and and that helps us meet our goal, which is real simple: to provide the best internet at the best possible price. And price is an issue of reducing our capital investment, so we can pass on lower pricing, because you got to make that back somewhere. Also, with these federal programs, we look at our subscription rates going down as speeds go up, so that once the dependency on the federal programs are removed, or the funds get removed, we anticipate that the private sector subscription rates will lower to keep that affordability aspect alive, just like Charter's program at $17 that they introduced many years ago. We hope that that's an industry standard, where all providers are able to get to that level. So more people adopt fiber.
Thank you. I couldn't have asked for a better group. They needed every question that I'm gonna ask next. I mean, easy peasy. So the next question is talking about the connectivity and the utilization of other organizations. And so what other state, local, federal organizations are you kind of partnering with to support these projects moving forward? So we're not wasting time and energy building down the same place. What does that coordination look like for you?
I would hope everyone has a lot of takeaways from today, but if I should illustrate one, it would be that this is very much an evolving situation with access to funding. With funding, through grant applications and subsidies, all these opportunities are a plethora of different organizations to work with. Some who spring up on their own accord of very interested and passionate individuals, other ones being more localized, state level, of course, and federal level. And it's very hard to we're all trying to not play tarot cards with exactly what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years from now, because a lot of investment goes into this, and it's making another point for Tim. The money has to be made back somehow. There has to be some degree of subsistence. And I guess I should apologize as well to being my forgetful self. I would like to name off probably 10 or 20 different organizations or entities that we work with, but forgive me if I miss one. Most importantly is our ongoing MOU-based partnership with Benzie County, the EDC, and the EDC Broadband Subcommittee. We're looking forward to the re-engineering and reimagination as to what the next form of the EDC subcommittee will take and how it will function in a mechanical sense with our local partner. Venture North has been fantastic to work with, a very adaptable and organization that is very well equipped to work with companies like Eclipse Communications, in which we operate outside of a traditional lending relationship in some ways. It's been a pleasure to work with Merit so far, and we look forward to the continued relationship, both directly between our organizations and also through Benzie County. Nice shout out to NEDC as well too. A little early to name out how we're going to be working together. That's in progress right now. And again, I apologize if I missed anyone else. The local partnerships have always been the most functional and most powerful relationships that we've had so far. And looking backward the past 5 years and looking forward, we seek to champion those efforts as much as possible.
Chris, for the shout out. Local, state, and federal organizations, yes, we work with a lot of them and all of them. We actually have a kind of a direct line, if you will, to the Capitol building. Our president and CEO is on many of the state broadband boards, research and education boards. So we've kind of dug our heels in and dug ourselves in. But more importantly to me, I'm a big fan of grassroots. I'm passionate about small communities. I live in a small community. I grew up in a small community in Colorado. I was sharing with Blake again that I work for an EDC, so I get it. I get that it's tough. It's tough to get your community the knowledge. You know, a lot of us don't speak broadband. We don't speak in gig and megs terms, but any of us are happy to explain what it really means and what it is. So we're going to continue to work with our anchor institutions. Again, we serve the majority of the libraries, the schools, the healthcare, community mental health. So chances are we already have a connection to some of your anchor institutions here in the county. I do want to quickly touch on the RDOF funding. It's terrific, and I'm super excited for organizations that can take advantage of that funding. We want to be sure, and based on preliminary, what we've kind of mapped out based on the RDOF awards, and at any time, I don't know if we're going to give out the links, but anyone can go look at an RDOF award. Who won it, how many households, and how much money, correct, was awarded. So right now, RDOF is going to cover about 50% of the county, which leaves 50% that isn't covered by some funding just yet. So if you know what funding sources, right? Yeah, if you know funding sources, ideas, listen, some of these networks are turned up by private and public funding and nonprofit funding. So if you have ideas from your community, come to the meeting in April. We also have on merit.edu, our website, it talks more about that moonshot program and the 3 kind of pillars, including funding and policies. So we put all of the funding sources that we're aware of out there. So at any time people can look. We work with the state grants office also. So when it comes time, when we get this data, present it to Katie and team, and the EDC, the next step is to chat about where do we get the money to start this network. So, so we work with all organizations.
I would say same. So just as background on the federal level, prior to probably 2 years ago, in my 20 years as charter employee, I don't think we'd ever taken any federal funding, anything. And state funding, there was a lot of strings that were attached. And then things came about with RDOF. So RDOF is a two-part reverse end auction. The first was designed for service to unserved census blocks, was about 9-something billion with a B. The next round is, as of today, scheduled to be to underserved, meaning people who have 25, but they're not at 100, right? And that's 11.8 billion. That has not been announced yet. So that's just one example. I haven't heard if we're going to participate in that. I presume we probably would. Our network today is over 300,000 miles, and around the earth, like 9 times, I think the number was. We're building another 115,000 miles of network. We have 96,000 US employees, and all of our call centers are here. I have to make sure I say that. So we partner with a number of organizations. We partnered with tribes through the NTIA Reconnect program. We've applied for and won some Michigan broadband grants. The legislature had put aside some money ahead of the pandemic, not because they knew it was coming, they just had set aside some funding. We applied for and won 7 grants, and of the 7 that we won last year, we've already built 4. And in every one of them, we've built more than what we were given funding for. In fact, when we applied, we put up about 60% of the cost. We wanted to show the state that we had skin in the game, and if you give us the money, we're not going to run out of town with your money. We're actually going to build it. So, so those are just a couple of examples. I know that the legislature has been in talks about an additional round of funding in Michigan, and I think that's coming out shortly. And again, there will be rules and guidelines as far as what's appropriate, who can apply, how to apply, et cetera. I actually do the applications for the companies. I'm the person who works on broadband grants till the middle of the night. Oh yeah, it's a lot. But you know, the good thing is there are guardrails in place. There are rules in place, like you can't take money to go build where somebody already has connectivity, right? And that's what kind of happened in some of these prior rounds of funding, was thousands of millions flew into the state, say 10 years ago-ish. What happened was people who didn't have connectivity didn't get any more, and the areas that already had service got a 3rd, 4th, 7th, 12th provider. So I think, you know, the overall structure has gotten more guardrails, which is important, so that the funding truly goes to where it needs to go. Now, as you mentioned, it's literally changing almost week by week. And so, you know, it's hard to predict where we'll go. I think we want to be a player. We certainly feel like we are a player. We have service across the UP and as far south as Monroe and back again. And, you know, we have opportunities we're talking to counties. We've got townships that have come to us and said, hey, Marilyn, we've got money. What would it take to build this area? We're having those discussions. They can use ARPA for that. So, you know, there's really a host of answers, but that's kind of the broader answer if that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, same. Yeah, my new job is to sit in front of my 52-inch screen and read legal documents, programs, initiatives, try to digest what they really mean, what the words behind what they're trying to achieve is, which we learned in RDOF as my application got rejected and we had to resubmit almost 3/4 of it because we misunderstood a word when I went through it. Fortunately, the FCC gave us a chance to do that and we were successful in winning, which for our size company as a regional is quite proud by our accomplishment there. But one organization organizations will work with. We work with everybody and anybody that wants to listen on how to be prepared to apply, because it does take teamwork. And we have a basic plan, we have an outline or template of what we do. So we don't construct everyone differently. We do standardize on what we do, but we try to incorporate within those applications the local needs. And so therefore I attend township meetings, I attend the women's club, you name it. If somebody wants to listen and they're truly committed to getting the best broadband, which is in our definition fiber, then we're willing to invest whatever time it takes to get the process started and hopefully work together to get it over the finish line. But there's ACP as a reminder. If you're on any government program, any need whatsoever, apply for ACP eligible. So Spectrum, there are others. It's a fairly simple process, but being a telephone company, being an ETC makes it a little easier to get through. Please, at $30, it adds more burden on us to apply. But if that helps you connect, that's where we want you to be. Jobs are on the internet, education's on the internet, telehealth is on the internet. We want you on the internet. And that's the other thing I guess I want to stress. Spectrum has RDOF and they're building beyond RDOF. We have RDOF, we're building beyond RDOF. I'm sure Chris, if he has a fiber to the home project and the next block over wants them, he'll expand for that block. That's our business. Our business is getting people connected. And so therefore, RDOF and these programs are just starting points. They're pins on the map that we can build out. And for the most part, we're friendly with one another. We all have the same goal. I mean, if everybody gets dependent on the internet, that's good for the industry. That's where we want to be. And that's where you want to be. So as an example, House Rep Molinar called up about an area in Wexford and called Spectrum. And Spectrum said, no, not us. That's Cherry Capital's area. That was our RDOF win. And so Molinar's group called us and we've been working with them on other areas in Gladwin and so forth that are of interest to him. Jack Bergman's been great. He's got an internet committee that has a number of different participants on it. They're all very interested in how to get more broadband out to more locations. And the provider and those organizations that focus on broadband like Merit are your tools to get there. But we very much need your help. And so we're not limited to, government. Not-for-profits are great. Somebody has an association. We just got done doing 3 associations and hooked up 200 homes up in Northport in the middle of nowhere. Fortunately, AT&T came to our assistance so we could get out of Leon County, because Leon County has very little fiber, although that's in the process of changing with our efforts and others. I do encourage you, call each and every one of us. If somebody's too busy to not respond, then move on to the next one and call back over. I mean, we are all very, very busy in what we're doing, but I don't know of anybody that won't respond to your question.
Sure. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you today. And I do really thank you for your time today. It's very exciting as an educational leader in technology. This is a constant topic at our state level educator technology director meetings of connectivity and keeping kids connected and getting schools connected. And we know fiber and broadband is a big piece of that. So thank you all for your time today and your help. That's it. So thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Brandy, and all of our team for our broadband. Just to really put this into perspective, we know the lack of broadband in the county. Know that whether you have business here, whether you have a home here, if it's 1 month a year, 6 months a year, or all year round, we hear you about your internet needs. We also hear your voice, and your voice is important, and the response to this merit survey is evident that your voices are being heard. So that is super important. We're gonna take a brief intermission. If you need to get up, stretch your legs, stop by the Harbor Lakes Resort snack table, use the restroom. And we're gonna come back and talk with Sara Kirk from the Village of Benzonia.
Dealt with the cake.
Oh.
I did not pencil in a break. I don't know if you need a break. They'll just left me a note that you need a break. I think it's pretty commonly accepted for all adults to get them. And I never builded breaks when I do that. I don't do a break. I didn't build it a break. That's okay. I'm like, the broadband was already running long. That was a good talk though. I mean, the broadband ran long, but it was okay. I'm okay with that. So hopefully infrastructure will be shorter because we only have 3 guys. I don't know why Bill. Well, that gives you a minute to set that up. So. But I was like, what he said before or after her, and I was like, oh, we'll do it before. Universities will have a minute to fill that up. I don't know why we needed a break, but whatever. Maybe I will now that the opportunity is presented. I don't need to go, but
Stretching their legs and take your legs back to your chair. We're gonna get started momentarily. Sara, all right, thank you. And we're going to shift gears. Broadband, what a great conversation. Right now, we're going to introduce our Village of Benzonia folks. And if you can, everybody can dream back 2 years ago when the whole strip got ripped up and all the little culverts got put in and how wonderful it was to be down to one lane in front of McDonald's and chocolate table. Yeah, that's better now. So all the way to the light, and we love all the new pavement that's going through there. Sara Kirk, our zoning administrator for the Village of Benzonia, is here to give you an update on their amazing master plan and what they have going on.
We also have Shane Iverson here with us today. For a long time, I was really involved in the master plan, so he's gonna chat with us too. But you can go through the slides. So today we're just gonna we didn't know exactly what we're going to talk about with the master plan, but this was the thing that we came up to talk to you guys about today. First, going to just kind of go through the master plan and that process that we did, then talk about a couple of the major zoning update revisions that happened because of that. And then talk a little bit about the village is involved in redevelopment ready community program through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So we're just going to touch on that a little bit too. I had an introduction slide in here. My name is Sara Kirk. I'm actually a landscape architect. That's my real profession, my real job. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I primarily do community and master plan projects. I do a lot of park and recreation work. I worked in the Southeast for a long time before coming back to this area in about 2013 and been working here since then and joined the village as zoning administrator in 2019. It's a shame.
Hi, I'm Shane Armstrong. I'm on planning commission as the secretary, and I've been doing that for, I think it's about 10 years now, I believe. And it's been an amazing process to work with Sara and the planning commission and the public to help, really get Benzonia on the map per se, to get that master plan done, and then use that as our template to make the community a great place to live.
Yeah, go to the next one. Just a little bit about master plans that many of you may not know. In order for communities to have a zoning ordinance and enforce the zoning ordinance, you're required by the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act to have a master plan that's approved. Benzonia began that process in 2019 and then adopted it in 2020. So it's about a year-long process to get that done. And it was the first master plan that was ever done just specifically for the village. Previously, as a lot of communities in Benzie County, it was under the county comprehensive plan, but that changed and now requires communities to have their own master plan. So this was Benzonia's first, and then you're also required to update that every 5 years. So just going to run through kind of that master plan process and how we went about creating the master plan for the village. The first step of that, and what was really important to the village council and the planning commission, was to have an extensive public participation process. And one of the things the slide before showed some of our design charrettes that we had, and to get the public involved. And what we came up with, a big result of that, was a vision plan for the village. If you hit the next slide, it comes up. The planning commission really went back and we had tons of comments. We did a big web-based public survey, and we boiled all that down and created this vision plan with all these notes that potential ideas of how we could keep it making improvements over the next 10, 20 years. We based a lot of the stuff that went into the master plan on this as part of that public participation. And Shane was really, I guess, involved as part of the planning commission and really making sure that that was a major goal as a part of this process.
Right, and our committee, or the planning commission chair, also just really wanted to make sure that the public was reached out to and made sure that we had great ways for the community to have some input on their own buildings, right? So all of these things that we did, having community input and public input from the village and beyond was very important to this process. And so the design charrettes, say that 10 times fast, the design charrettes and, the meet and greets and all the public hearings were a vital part of getting this put together.
Yeah. You can go to the next slide. The next part of the master plan process is to take all that information and comments, and the planning commission then takes that back and we set up our vision, goals, and objectives for the master plan. And we chose to kind of organize that about this idea of sustainability for the village and how we would develop into the future. And so the whole master plan is kind of developed around those three tenets of sustainability: social, environmental, and economic issues. And then the next stage of that was creating the future land use plan and the zoning plan. And some of the new categories that we came up with out of that process was to create a village mixed use zoning designation to allow some, I guess, greater flexibility for development along US 31. Also, to build upon that was to create a corridor design overlay for US 31, again, to add increased flexibility for developers as they do projects in our main corridor. And then also we had a lot of public comments about environmental concerns in the village. Trees, people like trees, people were concerned about development on steep slopes. If you've been through the village of Benzonia, you know, there's steep slopes everywhere. So a big part of that too was the idea of potentially creating a steep slope overlay zone to provide some additional protections on those steep slopes. And then the last part of the master plan is the implementation or the action plan. And there's a lot of this in the master plan. We have pages of action plan items all organized about those three ideas of environmental, social items and economic items. But really the kind of three big takeaways we want to explain today is loud and clear. We heard trees and environmental issues. So that was one of the main items that we want to make sure that we address. And then two, the look. We had so many comments. People wanted to improve the look along US 31. It's the main thoroughfare through the county, has the most traffic of any roads anywhere else in the county. So many comments. We need to make sure that we have better development along US 31. And then the last thing I want to touch on real quick, an issue that constantly comes up is sewer, and specifically the lack of sewer. It's a big limiting factor to any development that happens, not only in the village, but in other communities too. So a lot of the implementation and action plan items have to do with looking out for continued partnership opportunities, how we're going to solve this problem. So that's a key item moving forward. Then the next part of the presentation has to do with some of the immediate zoning updates that happened as a result of the master plan. It was adopted in January of 2020, which was almost exactly at the same time as the major road project was about to start that went through the village of Benzonia. And at the same time, there was for the village, there was kind of a flurry of activity, interested parties interested in developing along 31. So village council and the planning commission said, time out, let's make sure. We just went through this year-long process to try to make these improvements to the village. When we, as a place to start, let's pick two areas to kind of help make those improvements a reality. So the first two things that happened was updates to the environmental provisions to provide some additional protections for trees and steep slopes. And then the second thing was let's do the corridor overlay and get some of those additional requirements for development in place for development that happens along US 31. Next slide. So first, just talk real briefly on the environmental provision update that happened. The village had an environmental provision update in the zoning ordinance, but it didn't have a lot in there to protect trees and to protect steep slopes. So that was two of the things that we wanted to make sure that we afforded those additional protections to trees in development along steep slopes in the village. We broke it down into different areas, depending on what type of development it was, residential, commercial, or protecting trees in the public right of ways. And then again, I could give a whole presentation on just all the stuff that went into the environmental provisions, but the gist of it was we put tree protections on any trees that were 6 inches and 6 inches or larger, and then required some sort of replacements if you had to take those trees down, especially for commercial development. And then for residential development, we didn't require replacements, but we put some standards in there to help when developers come into a forested lot and are putting up new construction, that they are restricted to kind of a building envelope, which is what this hashed outline indicates. And we actually got to put that in process, in practice. And some new houses that went along Peace Road, where they went in a forest, that some forested parcels, instead of just, the developer being allowed to take out whatever he wanted to take out when he was doing the construction. We sat down and we went through the permit and outlined the area there, this building envelope where they were allowed to take out trees and then leave the rest of the trees. So hopefully you end up with a better project at the end. I mean, really, just wanted to say too, the village is a little bit progressive in this zoning ordinance. It's really the first in the area that requires this amount of tree protection. So it's kind of cool to be a part of. We also did some updates to the steep slope ordinance. Again, there was some provisions in the ordinance for steep slopes, but it was I think 33% and above, which is super steep slopes. We broke it down into 2 different categories. Start regulating anything that's 15% and above, and then broke it down again for a very steep category, anything that's 25% and above, and it's different types of building restrictions based on what zone you're in. And then the next update that happened at the same time was they decided that we should do a corridor overlay along US 31. So this affects all parcels that front US 31. And what this does is puts additional restrictions and regulations on those parcels for new development in any development that makes improvements over a certain percentage. Some of those, one of the first things that it did was allow mixed use by right for all the parcels that front US 31. And the point of that is to allow, I guess, more flexibility, allow residential and commercial use together. It also put architectural and pedestrian standards on new developments, along with landscape lighting and different signage requirements. And just a couple of examples of some of the architectural standards and pedestrian standards, some of the things, just to make things look better. We want to make sure that buildings face the street. There's putting some, again, pedestrian safety things like making sure you have a sidewalk connection to the new sidewalks that were just put in. And then we put typical cross sections in just to help further define for developers when they're coming in and doing developments, to show them the relationships between street trees and how signage and the sidewalks work.
If I may, Sarah,
Yeah.
the big driving factor of all of these things is the community's involvement in how the inhabitants of the village of Benzonia wanted the look and feel to. They still, we wanted to be progressive, but we also wanted to keep that same charming look and feel of the village. The parapets, the front storefronts on the sidewalks and things of that nature. So that community involvement was like integral into these choices and final rules that were put in place. So it was, the community was very involved in these situations.
Yes, yeah, this is all a direct result of what we saw in the master plan process. The last thing I just wanted to bring up is that Benzonia is involved in the redevelopment ready community process, which is through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. It's a program to kind of help your community be ready for developers to come in. It hooks you up with opportunities for different partnerships, grant opportunities, a whole bunch of different things. Benzonia was actually started engaged in this process before I became involved in the village. They got their baseline report back from the MEDC in 2018. And then just want to bring up, there's also a couple other engaged communities, Frankfort-Elberta are also starting this process as well. Go through last slide, I think. This one, just want to show a slide. I can't really see it very well, but you don't have to be certified in the RRC program to still get the benefits from the MEDC. Even though we're not certified yet, we're still in the program, and the MEDC works with us, and is, you're still able to be hooked up with grant opportunities and assistance to help your zoning ordinance along, and other just various. It's a lot of partnership opportunities that it affords. just wanted a quick example with this slide from Niles, Michigan. They're engaged in the process too, and they're not certified either. But this was, they were able to be involved in part of a pilot project to, for grant funding to then get money to have planners come in and help them kind of design some of their public spaces. So there's just opportunities like that that come out of being involved in the redevelopment community process. A couple other good things that have happened, I think, because of the master plan. We were able, with community support from the county and the county Parks and Rec, we were able to be involved in the Relief Michigan program last fall, and we got 20 trees planted in the village. There's been kind of revived interest in community support and ice rink. That's been really going well in the village. And then as part of this too, one of our action plan items was to have some volunteer subcommittees and get some volunteer groups together to help kind of work through the action plan list from the master plan. So that's kind of a work in progress. So I'm interested with you guys.
Yeah, we've met a couple of times with some other people in the village on actually, it's a lot of things that we're trying to get kind of whittled down into like 1 or 2 actionable chunks. And I think our street signs and wayfinding signs and things of that nature, so that we can have design a look and feel that the village of Benzonia can adopt as we get that input from that subcommittee. And there's a planning commission member that is part of those subcommittees, so they can then report back to the planning commission on what the progress is. And it's been a pretty fun process.
Yeah, so that's really all we had.
I was going to speak on this tree planting ceremony. I was out of town the day that this was happening. I think it was my daughter's track meet or something. I can't remember, but this was an amazing thing to have happen, because in that park, the Academy Park there next to the Mills Community House and Library, there's some trees that have been dead down because of their safety issues. So I don't remember the name of the resource that helped these trees get. Was it DTE?
It's Relief Michigan program. It's
Thank
part of DTE.
Okay, thank you. So Relief Michigan came in and the community came in and helped plant these trees that weekend. And it has already reaped benefits, because the beauty of these little tiny baby trees in that park, and people coming here and seeing those things and seeing that, hey, we have a community that's involved and they want them to be, they want their community to be better. You can see it in action right here. It's a very proud moment right there for this guy.
Anybody has any questions?
Sara, your master plan is fabulous, and I thought it was really cool how we got the whole community engaged. One of the things, unlike a lot of master plans, you guys have a lot of implementation ideas and goals and things like this. And I hope I'm not crossing the line, because you already said the S word. And you got so many leaders in here. How do you turn this corner? I mean, there's so much infrastructure, right? Government money, so how are we going to turn the corner with sewers, supporting all that?
Yeah, there's some things in the works. I think it's okay to say. So looking at partnership opportunities, not with the village, but with the Benzonia Township, and maybe, I mean, it's going to take some creative solutions, because small communities, small fragmented communities, nobody can do it on their own. So it's going to take kind of the reach out and look again for creative solutions. I think we've started the conversation, but that's really where it is now.
I think that personally, I'm just speaking for myself here, but I think that if there was some of that infrastructure, that would have the village of Benzonia less hamstring for some of the other awesome development ideas that have been presented to us, like the Benzonia High School area, the old Benzonia High School. That area right there is a great spot in my mind for a housing development. That's kind of a targeted term, but costs money, and having that sewage or internet or electrical or whatever it is, infrastructure there and available for that development could only help the village. We have the tax base, and then the housing, of course, is a whole nother process, a whole nother discussion that's continuing as we speak. So the partnerships that we're completely open for, to get those infrastructure items taken care of, to help the village of Benzonia grow and prosper, which then has a halo effect, in my opinion, through the entire county. being right in the middle of the county too. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I have two questions we both about the master plan. First one is, you set goals and objectives. You identify not an individual, but the source who's responsible for implementing.
Yes, and the implementation plan. Yeah, and if we could have dove further into that, yes, the implementation plan directly correlates to the goals and objectives. And in it lays out who's responsible for what, like whether that's the planning commission, the council, or the SEEK outside partnership. And then we also put a timeline to it. Like their 1 to 3 year goals, 3 to 5, 10 plus. Kind of.
Yeah, we found just goals and no timeline.
Right, exactly.
Second question, did you get any help from an engineering firm when you wrote up your master plan?
No, I acted, I guess, as a landscape architect. Like I've been doing master plans and community planning for, like I said, 20 years or so. So I was their consultant, the planning commission's consultant when they did the master plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. To our next section, our infrastructure panel. We're going to invite up Bob Rolas. He is our Board of Commissioner for District Number 1, that little sliver over there on the east side, to talk with his panelists. We have Tim Lejeunesse from DTE. We have Tony Anderson from Cherryland Electric, and Dan Hook, who is the council president for the village of Beulah. And I'm sad to report that Consumers Energy was not able to join us today. So I will turn it over to you, Bob, because I know you're gonna needle these guys. We gotta get stuff done.
So I'm gonna forego the microphone and just hand this over to the guys, because you will be able to hear me. So thanks, I'm Bob Roloff, Benzie County Commissioner of District 1, which is in the Lake Ann area. We got up against Grand Traverse County, my district. It's 1/2 mile wide and 6 miles long. Take care. Commissioner Sauer has 4 townships, 6 by 6, 6 miles by 6 miles. That's 36 square miles per. So when you look at me with my 6 square miles and Gary with his 144 square miles, he covers a lot of ground. We represent the same amount of people, because that's how the districts are broke down. So it's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm told that Melissa has asked 3 or 4 other folks, they all turned her down, so you ended up with me. So I've been in my 6th year as a commissioner for Benzie County. I'm in my 3rd year as the board chair. I really am happy to be able to engage with the other 6 commissioners. We have a great panel. We're doing great things for all of the residents of Benzie County. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen, for being here. These are all canned questions, so I had nothing to do with it. So what types of grant funding has your organization secured from the American Rescue Plan Act or any other sources? 2-part question. So the first part.
First part for us is we have not secured any ARPA funds and have no intent of securing ARPA funds. Oh, sorry, Tony Anderson, Cherryland Electric Cooperative.
Good afternoon, I'm Tim Lejeunesse. I'm the manager of transmission and gas engineering for DTE. As far as the gas for the infrastructure, we've not secured any funding with the American Rescue Plan. However, we just found out today that the legislature and the governor have come to an agreement on, I think it's $25 million for what we call the last mile. So a business or an organization could apply for that grant to get us to extend our existing infrastructure to, if you're on propane now and you want natural gas, to be able to do that. So we as work with our governmental relations folks and making those applications to then expand and do that last mile.
Very good. Dan?
Yeah, I'm Ian Hook, and on your agenda says that I'm the president of the village, but I'm not.
Could be.
Just, I was, but I found out I probably shouldn't be, so, but I am on the council of law and finances, the area that I'm in. Jerry Vanderberry is our president, so I had to put that pitch in. We did get some ARPA money, 36, well, the first half, we got 18,000. And I think we'll get the second half this year sometime. We haven't really decided totally how we're gonna spend that. We think we're gonna probably put some in an asset management program, particularly for our infrastructure, because we have water and sewer. But I think we'll extend that. But so we'll have to figure out how the rest of that is. And the way things are changing, I think we figure we'll just wait long enough that sooner or later, they're just gonna say, use it any way you want, because it keeps expanding on the usage roles. But we have received several other grants over the last few years through Eagle, formerly DNR. We had our waterfront project done. We had our streetscape project done. We had, and part of that streetscape was also a wayfinding. We had a study done on designing some wayfaring signs that we haven't moved ahead on yet. The most recent, well, we had a grant, it's called a SAW grant. It was to develop a stormwater management plan, because you've heard the word steep slopes. Well, all the slopes slope down to Beulah. And that's where the water goes. And that's created some problems, particularly since the railroad left. You know, if you're familiar with that area, the railroad grade used to go along Crystal Avenue, and it created a culvert, and the water would come down those streets. And it would perk through the ground and go out into the lake. And that's gone, and it's down the bike trail, and now the water just comes down and goes across the bike trail and moves a lot of ground. So we had a grant from the DNR at the time to do the stormwater management plan, and we had that done. It took 3 years. Our engineering firm took care of it for us, and then we applied for a non-point source grant to actually implement the things that the plan came up with. Because the plan came up with some best management practices for how to handle it, putting in some storm chambers, particularly along Crystal Ave to catch some of the water that's coming down, putting in some filtration baskets with it in little smaller areas to catch it as it comes down, particularly Spring Valley. Spring Valley is a good runway for a lot of that water. And then some road ends, or some rain gardens and some of the road ends. So we applied, what was it, 2 or 3 times through Eagle now for the non-point source grant to actually implement some of this stuff. And after 2 or 3 times, and they were very helpful in telling us what we needed to do to improve our story. The whole idea of the grant was to eliminate or to reduce E. coli. As you know, if you've ever tried to use the Beulah Beach, once in a while we get it's tested during the summer every Wednesday. And if it's too high on E. coli, then we have to close the beach. So of these, the best management practices that we've come up with are going to reduce. I don't know that it's going to eliminate it, but it's going to reduce, because all that water that comes down carries contaminants of some sort. So the idea is to process it, to filter it, to perk it through the ground, and then out into the lake. Because frankly, right now, the water that comes down goes down into our stormwater sewer system, and there are several outlets, and it just goes right out into the lake, which is not good.
You're getting in front of me. That's gonna come in a minute, all of those types. So let's just talk about the money for a minute.
Well, yeah, we got a lot of money. That was about, those are the grants that we got, so. Yeah, that's the other half of the question.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
I'm from the government, you know.
I do have to apologize in my opening comments. I failed to recognize Commissioner Rhonda Nye. She's your Benzonia Township Commissioner, and she's the Vice Chairperson for the Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Thanks, Rhonda. And I owe her all the credit because she's the one that put my name in the hat for this. Thank you. Second part of that question, sirs, are there any funds that Benzie County should be looking at to implement infrastructure projects that you're aware
Well, from my gas standpoint, I think that's what I mentioned with the $25 million that's still now going to be available.
Yeah, I absolutely have an answer for this. It's the funds you're getting. Think about if you could revolve them over the years. At Cherryland, we've had a $1.2 million revolving loan fund, zero interest revolving loan fund for the last 20 years. We've taken that $1.2 million, we got it in 3 separate tranches, and we've rolled it over several times to the tune of $4.9 million. So thinking about that $6 million you're getting in Benzie County, how much of that can you roll over? How can you give it out to an entity, get it paid back, and then roll it again? It has to be designated to ARPA purposes, but think about rolling that money over and turning that 6 million into 12 or 20 or 30 million over the next 20 years. That's absolutely something you should be working on right now.
Those conversations have been.
Yes, and it kind of segues into what the other session talked about, the S word, the sewer word. I was supposed to be talking about water, but you know, I'm going to talk about sewer instead. Sara touched on it too, because the village of Benzonia, township of Benzonia, and the village of Beulah are getting together and have basically agreed to work together to try to form some sort of regional sewage treatment plant. Okay, and it's definitely needed. Now we have sewer system in the village of Beulah, but it just serves the village of Beulah. I think it could be expanded. That's one option, but we have looked at as we've met together and we said, let's see if maybe we can convince the county to give us a little bit of that ARPA money to do a survey, a study, a feasibility study on that situation. It's been done many years ago, but nothing really developed from it. We'd like to see something happen. And we think that the activity that's been going on, particularly in Benzonia under 31 corridor, the time is right for something like that to happen. So we've made a request for the ARPA funds, and if that transpires, then both the villages in the township have said, yes, let's do it. We haven't really settled on an area yet, because that sort of depends on what the word is. How feasible is it? How far can we go with a system? With a saturation population that we have. So it might be from, say, the 31-115 section up to maybe honor. We're not sure, but that is what we see as a key purpose for some of that article.
Next question. Infrastructure is critical to affordable housing program. What are the future short-term plans for improvements in Benzie County?
As far as affordable housing goes, we're more focused at Cherryland on livable housing. We started a program with Grand Traverse Habitat for Humanity, where they call it the priority home repair program. They take substandard housing, go in, fix the doors, windows, make it more energy efficient. I'm all for selling my product. I'm not for wasting my product. So our next step in the short term is to take that model in Grand Traverse County and how do we duplicate that in Benzie, Manistee counties and improve the housing that we have. Our housing stock is declining, especially in the low income areas, and it needs to be fixed so the energy isn't wasted. And that's how I would get a home to be more affordable, is to stop the energy waste going on in a lot of our substandard housing.
So hold on just a second, Tony, I'm gonna step in. So for me, living in Elmira Township, and anytime the power's out, and it's globally throughout the county, Lake Ann area always maintains power through Cherryland Electric. Consumers, sorry, but not so good. And we've just seen that recently with the last win that we had. I was in communication with Judge Thompson. He was in Manistee. I said, I don't see any issue. He was talking about maybe closing the county, and that's his and my decision together. They said, no, we're fine. It was pretty chaotic that morning. So I got my truck and I drove over to Government Center. My comment was, I did not have to go around any trees because of what Cherryland Electric has done with their system over the years. I don't know what you call it, but it's a gang that all the wires run through. If something falls, it's got to take it all down, not just one or two that get into each other and scramble the whole network. So, I mean, my hat's off to Cherryland for them continuing maintaining their structures when some of the other folks aren't up to speed yet.
That concludes the commercial for the day. Okay, thank you very much. We've spent $2 to $3 million on Benzie County in the last 5 years. We constantly do that. Reliability is, we have one business, and that's to provide you electricity, and we take that very serious. And that's all I'll say about that.
And then for the gas side, as far as reliability, we'll kind of expand on that a little bit too. So for affordable housing, what we like to do is have an easy source for and a reliable natural gas supply. So what we've done over the course of the last couple of years, we've seen that along 31 or 2020 along going into Traverse City itself is about 2 years ago, we started a project. The gas that was feeding Traverse City, Grand Traverse County, Benzie County, and Leelanau County was fed with a single 10-inch diameter pipeline, a single line that was built in 1956. So the reliability of that line, we needed to make sure that was all year round risk that we had. So we've been reinforcing our system in the area by putting what we call a loop, so a parallel pipeline, a brand new line right next to the existing one, to just reinforce and make that system reliable. What it also does, last year, we built the about 14 miles up to the county line, essentially, along 31. And not only does that now increase the reliability, improve the reliability, but it also then increases the amount of gas that's in the area. So this development occurs over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 years. The availability of gas is going to be there.
On the affordable housing issue, we don't have a lot of extra room in the village of Hewlett to create it, but there's really two things that I would see as key for us and for the area to kind of improve that. And it was touched on in the first presentation of the village of Benzonia and their master plan, the location of the old high school. I mean, it would be great to put in affordable housing, but we need the sewer, and so this is going to be like a broken record. But that to us is a high priority for this area, is to have a regional sewage treatment plant that's going to feed a lot of the businesses that are already down 31 corridor. But to me, it would also obviously improve the chances for establishing some affordable housing in the area, because that's a necessity. The other thing is not quite so infrastructure related, but like most all communities in northern Michigan, our housing is rapidly being converted to short-term rentals. And it's very noticeable if you pull up a map from vacation rentals by owner and all of these different things. There's a lot of those rentals. So we've put together a short-term rental ordinance that also was actually created with a committee that we said volunteers from the community. Let's see what we can do. And actually, most of the volunteers were owners of the property that they wanted to rent, but we did put that together. But to us, just trying to manage the growth of those is critical to affordable housing.
Yes, sir.
And here's my point. I live in the rural area and I use some of those rentals. I love this area.
I can give you a couple phone numbers. What are the major barriers in our region for infrastructure improvements, and how can we be proactive as a community?
Obviously, zoning and planning are the barriers, and to be proactive in the community, you need to get your townships all on the same page. When the townships are fighting, business is gonna go where it's easy. It's like when you spill water, it's gonna go the easiest path out. Get your townships together, get them all on the same page, make it easy for business. Don't give away the farm, but don't put up barriers to business if you want them here. And that's getting everybody all on the same page.
Perfect.
You know, for us, when we're doing our infrastructure projects, working with the local communities to, if you're gonna be doing a road project and we're gonna be building a pipeline, how about us put the pipeline under the ground and then we put the asphalt right under the
Good point.
That's too practical. I wouldn't call them barriers, but they're challenges. Obviously, we know that one of the challenges that we're pretty spread out. We have in terms of concentration of population, that's an issue. You have to try to provide your service, provide your utilities or whatever. So that's kind of what we're up against also in the utility area. I think I'll say it again, the barrier to developing them is just getting our communities to work together. I think, you know, we're working with Benzonia. They're working with us. We have a common goal. Just, you know, how can we serve when we have such a spread out population?
Absolutely.
5 minutes. I'm a timekeeper. So.
Thank you.
I can tell Bob what to do.
Sorry, thank you. Last question, what multi-jurisdictional best practices have you seen in other communities that could be implemented in Benzie County?
I was at a meeting in Leelanau County this morning, and they've gotten all their townships on board with a fiber plan and a fiber project. They've done a mapping project like you all are doing, and that's the best practice I would look at. Leelanau is projected to have 90 or almost 100% of their homes with access to fiber or access to internet of some kind in the next couple of years. And it's because they've all cooperated together. It's taken them 5 to 6 years to get to today, but they're there. Cooperation.
And I'd almost go back to that last response. It's the more the utility and the organization, the townships or counties working together to have the plans in place, not a number of years in advance.
That's pretty much the same. And one of the obstacles to that, I mean, it's easy for us to say, let's all cooperate. But when we say, okay, let's cooperate and put up a region-wide sewer system or water system or whatever. What you have to get beyond is, well, I'm going to lose control of that, okay? Because right now I'm in control of it, being my community, I'm in control of it. So that's just an obstacle that is, you know, it's not just here, it's in anytime you're trying to get people to cooperate, what is it that you're going to give up in order for the better good? So that's really the obstacle that I see, and it's a challenge for us to accept the fact that we're going to be turning over some responsibility that we had to someone else.
The only thing I would add personally is with the 12 different townships, there's 12 different government bodies that all have their own ideas, and sometimes they don't all want to play in the same sandbox together. Because what happens in Frankfort compared to what happens in Honor or Thompsonville, they're totally opposite of each other. So unfortunately, that's some of the issues that we would have to deal with, is getting everybody to come to the table at the same time with the same ideals.
Yeah, that was my point.
There you go. So does everybody has any questions for these gentlemen? You must have done a good job. What's that? Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
The donation will be made on behalf of your agents.
Bob's also available to plug your business. So meet with him after. Great infrastructure panel. Things are happening. Obviously, there's room for improvements, and we've heard that from our providers today. So, vote with your conscience come election season. Obviously, we're the Benzie chamber. We're not the only chamber in the county. Actually, Frankfort-Elberta has their own chamber, which is largely responsible for your festivities over there, because they're way more fun than we are. So I'm going to have Andrew Johnson, who's the president of our Frankfort-Elberta Chamber of Commerce, come up and give us a quick update on what kind of things we have to look forward to for the summer.
Very much. I don't know how close or far to be to this. But it's been really interesting listening to all of the different infrastructure things that, you pay attention to. It's just as a regular homeowner. And but you don't necessarily dial down into some of the real nitty gritty stuff. And it's really exciting. And one of the things I was going to say, even before hearing some of this, is that I really felt like, with the pandemic, we really saw the need for some of these things and how we needed to have the communication abilities. We needed to have, consistency. And frankly, for being a little area, I thought we did okay. You always do better, and we're going to do better. But for Frankfort, that was a really important part of what happened during the pandemic. Is while everything shut down, and as they started slightly ramping back up, we got busier. Frankly, we had a lot of people that were either seasonal residents or people that were planning on moving to come and set up shop and work and live. And for a long time, we didn't see a lot of them, and then all of a sudden, you start seeing more and more people that were making Frankfort and Alberta area their home. So that really paid off well for us. And so for our chamber, we stayed open throughout the pandemic, open with air quotes to some extent, but we were there to help, service our members, help the people, the visitors, because as we know, or as a lot of us know, visitors flocked here once restrictions started changing. And so that was, great, because it kept a lot of our businesses alive, barely alive in some cases, but that's a lot different than a lot of places. And so to me, the stuff we've done over the years marketing our area has been good. Interesting thing with Frankfort is that our chamber has been there for a long time. The Frankfort-Elberta Chamber has had a couple different names, and in essence really came in with the outgoing of the industry in Frankfort, with the loss of the railroads and with the shipping, and that changed. And Frankfort was a different town at that time. It was a blue collar town, much more working class, and more industry. And as those things have changed, that's part of the thing that our chamber kind of got involved in, and part of why we got into doing a little bit more of what we do versus what Benzie focuses on. Benzie chamber focuses on is tourism. Tourism kind of came to us. We were located in the right spot, and it said it liked us. And the Ann Arbor Railroad delivered a lot of people from Chicago and from St. Louis and all these different places, whether it be it by boat or train. And so that set us up for something that's slightly different than other parts of the county, and not necessarily something you pick always, but it's something that you inherit. And so for us, we've always kind of felt like, well, that's what people want to do. Let's help them. And so for our businesses, everything kind of transitioned over the years to being the tourist-based economy. And a lot of times people will ask about different things and economic development, and we're all behind that and interested in that. But it also, at a certain point, once you start to become a tourist community, then how do you develop? How do you grow smartly? Do we want to have a cement plant or gas? Shipping. What do we want to have? How do we want to change? And so we've been focusing on trying to, grow smartly. The short-term rentals and, an important thing. It's important for visitors. It's important for some of the business. It's not important for other things like, affordable housing. So we kind of have to balance that. So anyway, where I was going with all of this is, we do things a little different in that regard because a lot of the events we put on are trying to help foster good income, good visits of people from the regional area and from further out to try to come and help keep our way of life going. But not all of them are intended to be there forever. But we also try to want to attract, I hate to say this way, the right kind of people, but people that are interested in recreation and all. So one of the things that we've done to increase our ability is having really good dynamic partnerships. And this, since prior to the start of the pandemic and through, we've really made some really great new partnerships. Some really close to home. We're working more with the city of Frankfort and really even more with the Downtown Development Authority, which Frankfort formed a few years prior. And those things take a little while to get their structure, to get the money available to it. And we really see some great things coming with them to help support our local businesses. And frankly, we think we've been doing an okay job of doing that because we're seeing some more businesses open up in Frankfort. And the summer season may not be very long, but we're seeing businesses stay open longer too. So every little bit has helped. With the DDA, we're hoping to do some interesting things downtown. We've got some cool ideas kind of floating around out there to make it a little more lively, keep people a little longer, make our shoulder seasons a little thicker. The other incredible partnership that came out of a thing that was really challenging for a lot of folks was with our Benzie chamber, our Benzie CDB voting and changing and partnering with TC Tourism. For us, that has been interesting on a number of levels because we've made this partnership with some great people up there at Traverse City, and as well as some of the funds that were in the CDB at the time it left have come to both of our chambers to be used towards furthering business in our community. We're working our way through that. It's kind of a hard start with had some great conversations and some great marketing things we're going to do, and then shut her down. So we're still working on that, but our TCT, or Traverse City Tourism, has been a phenomenal partner, and I really care about our community and our county. I was on a call this morning regarding the Frankfort-Elberta Restaurant Week, which we have coming up in June, and they are jumping in and wanting to be part of that and wanting to really help promote it regionally, billboards downstate, to try to bring in some more business in that early run up. June is when businesses are getting new people in, they're getting ready for the summer season, trying out new things. So that's wonderful. They want to partner with us on the fall festival. And most importantly, they were a huge part in making Frankfort the home for the Ironman, which was a huge undertaking to get everything organized and working with them. But what an interesting thing to have in such a small town. Talking with the Ironman people, they were just like, this is such an incredible venue. Your volunteers and your people have embraced us. It's been wonderful. And talk about a great group of people to bring to your community as the Ironman participants, because they were just phenomenal. They were great. We had one great story from a person in one of the neighborhoods. They're all worried about parking, and they said, went to bed, street was calm. We woke up the next morning, every single parking spot was taken, and they didn't hear a single thing. So those are the kind of people we want to have. So what we're really doing is pushing forward on some of those avenues with some more events and things, and as well as we've really reinvested in our partnership with the Benzie Chamber, and we've kind of understanding that we're not both doing the same things, but we're both interested in the same goal, and that is making Benzie County great. And so Frankfort-Elberta Chamber and Benzie Chamber, we've been much more conversations, and hence the reason we're having partnerships like this, and we've had some in Frankfort as well. But we really think that by dividing and conquering, so to speak, focusing on different things, focusing maybe on more legislative things. We can do better and be more effective instead of kind of trying to reinvent the wheel all the time. So partnership is, I think, the word that I say is the most. So that kind of gives you a little rundown on one who the Frankfort-Elberta Chamber of Commerce is and kind of what we're doing. And keep an eye out for some of these fun family events that we have throughout the season. And the way we look at it is to steal a line from John F. Kennedy, who stole it from a Chamber of Commerce, a rising tide floats all boats. And so we're totally into that. Bill?
Andrew, I know you're not the city of Frankfurt, but short-term rentals have come up. It's the chamber taking a position, or where's Frankfurt going with that?
Yeah, basically where Frankfurt was headed with it is trying to establish some baseline agreements, I guess would it be, between the city and the renter or the rental owner to make sure that they do some basic things. Trying to head towards a thing where they can kind of partner into, I don't want to say inspections, because I don't think that's exactly what they want to do, but being on board and above board, I guess is maybe a better way to say it about the rentals than just kind of sneaking around. Making sure you have a plan for taking care of trash. Make sure there's a parking plan. Make sure your rules have some things into it. And so to them, I think they kind of felt like it was easier to engage friendly than adversarial. So the chamber has been on a periphery of it because they've kind of had it in committee more than anything. It hasn't come to that stage of where we had to give an opinion. Well, it was a 3-year contract, and so there'll be 2 more that are on paper at this time. So, and as anything, those things change, but I don't think that's their intent to go anywhere. They would like to see it continue, and so far the numbers are looking really promising for really what they want, and I think we have some things that we know we can do better on, and but all in all, it was really a good start. So. Then there's a few other things too. We're seeing with the partnership with the DDA and having a little bit more discussion in regards to some of the infrastructure things that are going on in the city as well. Beach bathroom, park bathrooms, and some things like that. So they're all positive things that are happening in Frankfurt as well too. So that's a little recap, or maybe a little bit more history than maybe a recap of what's coming up, but keep your eyes open, and thanks for visiting Frankfurt and Alberta, and thanks for being here and doing all you guys have done for the other infrastructure things too. So we really, that's good. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. Great things happening in Frankfurt. And I'll give one more shameless plug to our kind host, Benzie, and our sponsor, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Michigan, as well as our snack sponsor, Harbor Lights Resort. And we're going to bring up Steve Campbell, who is our board chairman for the Benzie Area Chamber of Commerce, to give you a little spiel. And we're going to wrap up here quickly.
Claire, my pee had a little fun flipped around. So
Oh, whoops. My bad.
It's an interesting time to be a chamber of commerce. I appreciate that Andrew spoke first and kind of talked about some of the differences. Frankfurt Chamber has really taken on that role of tourism and event planning and trying to bring people into the community. And the Benzie Chamber is going through kind of a reinvention period, reinventing ourselves, because if you remember, for many years, 20+ years, we were kind of together and bonded with the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Benzie County. And I was a part of that because we have a hotel, Harbor Lights Resort, and that was a big part. But when our director retired, Mary Carroll, our most previous, we started to kind of look at, okay, where is tourism going? And can we as Benzie County, with our small footprint, compete with the likes of Traverse City Tourism? And why should we even? Tourism is a regional thing. We understood that, and people are coming to this region. They've got the resources, they've got the expertise, they've got the staff. They have, and they are so excited to be promoting Benzie County. So for anybody that, thinks that we took a step back in tourism in promoting Benzie County, just the opposite. We've taken so many steps forward. And so, and it's just like everything else we're talking about is this, the goal of all of this is collaboration. And I'm so excited to be part of this event, and I'm going to steal a little thunder, but this was kind of Bill Dennis's brainchild. And as we talk about reinvention, what do we want to be? Because I understand that everybody is busy, really busy, doing more with less, and so trying to engage our membership to come to events and things, and we do a lot of fun things like the after hours, and we have different things, golf outings and things that are fun. And we do some networking, but we're starting as the reinvention process, and Michelle Barefoot, our director, has just done a phenomenal job. We started to really focus on education, lunch and learns, working breakfasts, and we're going to continue that, to do some business roundtables and events like this. And I think, we all get tired of reading emails and updates and things. It's like to get people in a room, which feels so nice after what we've gone through these last couple of years, to really hear everybody kind of talk about what's going on and understand what people are working on. That's being in these silos. We kind of come together and talk. And that's where I feel the role of the Benzie Chamber and others can help, just continue this forward. And the infrastructure discussions and the broadband discussions, all the things that it's going to take to make Benzie County more attractive for people to stay, for people, people that are coming out of our high schools to decide to maybe, work here and live here and have their families here versus going off somewhere else and creating that opportunity. And there's some really cool stuff being talked about for, some of these, incubator, accelerator type firms that are interested in maybe coming to Benzie County to create some high paying jobs and some really exciting stuff. Of course, again, we need that infrastructure to help, but it's really an exciting time. We have it's a volunteer organization. We're on a small budget. It's a membership driven organization. And, you can't fundraise yourself to success. You can get overdone with fundraising and things. So everything mostly comes from our dues stuff, but there are some other things that we can do to raise some money, but it really takes a village, if you will, volunteers. So we're always looking for people to help to put on programming like this and to create new opportunities for education and engagement. And I'm really excited about what Blake talked about with the EDC connection in the county and creating a position that really focuses on economic development and really kind of having that under the roof of the chamber, because it's important as a chamber and as a community that we retain our businesses and that we create some opportunities for new businesses to come. And it's going to take that effort to kind of do an inventory of what we have, what we need, talking to the townships and the villages and looking at their master plans and okay, what are they really looking for? What kind of development opportunities do they have? What kind of sites are available? What funding and what grants are available? Really kind of putting that all together. I mean, that's going to be a lot for one person, but you got to start somewhere, and hopefully that will grow, and the county will see the benefit and help fund that, and hopefully grow that, and then we can really have a significant arm of economic development moving forward. But it's, in closing, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. We're really excited. This is kind of hopefully this will be a first annual. I don't again not steal Bill's thunder, but it's really cool to see everybody come out. We really thank you. And should be some great time coming up. Thanks again.
As a chamber member, if you're interested in any of our board positions as well as our committees, come and talk to us. And speaking of committees, this is put on by our former government affairs committee that we have kind of re-evolved that into the Awareness and Advocacy Council to encompass more economic development, more government relations, and other programs like this that involve not only our members, but the community. And the man with the plan, the chair of the Advocacy and Awareness Council, Bill Kennis, is going to close us out.
Wow. Never really had like a rock star introduction like that. That was awesome. I'll have to listen to that here. Yeah, we used to be called Government Affairs. Doesn't sound politically correct, does it? For government relations, equally bad. So it's about awareness, it's about collaboration. We're also thrilled. I mean, 60 people came out today, guys, and thank you. You guys are all leaders in your community, both chambers. You know, for all the speakers and the moderators, we couldn't be more pleased. This is how we're going to get things done in the county. The county commissioners have provided some great vision. Bob, thanks for muscling Tony and keeping him on track. You know, it was really great. Michelle, thank you for putting on such a great conference. Benzie, Harbor Lights, thank you again. And we have quarterly meetings. Many of you signed in, but if you want to be a part of future events, please sign in. And did anybody else have any comments or questions? Look at this, we're on time. This concludes our program, and hope to see you next year. Thank you very much.